Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, then please do not continue to listen until after you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. And on our fourth week of...
Fourth and final.
Yes. Oh, it's our final, man. Now I'm sad. But on our final week of Asian Horror Month, we are doing a classic, Ringu. And I'm my terrible pronunciation is like, I didn't want to be like, it's Ringu, because, you know, that doesn't do the Japanese justice. Like so for those who are not familiar with Japanese, their R's and L's are essentially combined, like pretty much. They don't really have
they're interchangeable. They don't really have a symbol for L. Yeah,
and they don't really have yeah. Anyways, that's why for anyone familiar with Death Note, they say righto instead of light, or because it's like, anyways, going on a tangent. But we decided to cover this movie, and so that way you guys could have the opportunity of seeing the original Japanese and then the American version. But to start us off with tea, what tea are you drinking?
The movie got me a little prickly, so I am drinking Tazo Tea's Prickly Pear Cactus.
Oh my god.
So, because I got some things to say about this movie.
Uh-oh.
How about you?
I know I'm gonna mess it up again, but I'm doing the Brutalities like Cheap Tricks tea, and it's...
You got it.
Yay! I got it!
He was like so practicing before, guys, and how to say it, and she was not getting the pronunciation at all.
I will say, like, this is the first time I'm trying this tea on putting it at the optimal temp rather than just microwaving the water like I normally do. I know, it's horrible. It's like I have a fancy tea maker and I don't even use it. But
why do you even have it then?
Because I wanted it. And it steeps the tea for you. It's amazing. Oh, it tastes so much better now that it's at the temperature that it's supposed to brew at. But whatever. All right, so if you guys know anything about the American Ring, you pretty much know what's up with the Japanese original. There's a few little tweaks here and there, but essentially there's a curse videotape to where if you watch it, you die in 7 days. And this particular woman watches it, and instead of ignoring her fate or just kind of forgetting about it, she decides that she wants to investigate, like, what happened. Well, I guess to even step before that, her niece passed away, and her niece was in her teens. The autopsy didn't bring anything up. She's like, what the heck happened to her? And so she finds out about the videotape. She watches the videotape, and then the whole movie is her trying to break the curse. But I guess... for anyone that's not familiar with the Japanese version, it definitely touches a lot more on the psychic sensitivity. But I don't know. Is there anything else I should add for the summary? I think it's a pretty straightforward movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the vast majority of you, if you're watching this, you've probably already seen the American version of The Ring. It's kind of a classic. If you haven't seen it... why?
Yeah.
Have you not seen it? Like, where have you been?
Yeah. Watch it.
And there are references everywhere to it in popular culture. So, like, this is where it came from.
Yeah.
Same kind of deal.
Well, initially, to go even farther back, initially it was a novel, and then the novel became, well, a Japanese novel, and then the novel became the Japanese movie, and then the Japanese movie became the American movie. So the American movie is literally the third rendition of the story.
What we do. It's what we do.
Yeah.
But they do delve more into the psychic aspect of it and the mood of the people in that area towards those that have different abilities and things. So that was kind of interesting there. But let's start with the entertainment scale before we go too in depth with the analysis.
I guess since you have apparently more to say than I do, I'll go first. I would give this movie a 6. And I know some people are really gonna maybe hate us for this episode. And I apologize ahead of time. I mean, to be fair, I did watch The Ring first before I watched Ringu. And
INGU.
Thank you. I cannot roll my R's very well. Well, I can't. Yeah,
well, they don't really roll it that much.
Well,
but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm terrible at
Just
Japanese. But anyways,
moving on.
So there's a lot of things that the American version did that made so much more sense, and I just loved how they compiled it together. And I don't really feel like the original Japanese has that much of an excuse since they had a book to go off of. It's not like they were starting from scratch. But yeah, so there's just some things that I didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really hit me much. But I do like the atmosphere, how it's kind of like a looming creepiness and how I noticed, like, for instance, whenever they think that the mother's okay, but then you find out that the father is going to die, that next day, the day of his death, it comes back with that countdown. And so it's like if you're watching the movie for the first time and you don't know he's going to die, you're like, what the heck? Why is it still counting down? I don't know, just little things like that were pretty neat. But, I don't want to go too much into it because a lot of my complaints are more for the realism scale. Like the cinematography, all of that stuff, I feel like they did pretty well, and I have no complaints about that. It's just, I guess, my bias because I do enjoy the American version better, and I hate saying that because Ringu is the original, but
it's rare, but it happens.
Yeah. But I don't want to discount all of the effort that they obviously put in the movie. But yeah, so I'll just call it done on what I have to say about the entertainment scale, and then I'll kind of rip it apart whenever we get to the realism scale.
Fair enough. A lot of mine is on realism too, so fair enough. I would actually give this one a 5 instead of a 6. Like, it's all right. The mood isn't very creepy. There's not quite as much of a sense of urgency, I feel like, in this one as they did in the American version.
Yeah.
And I generally do like originals better than remakes. I do.
Yeah.
But this one, in this rare instance, I agree. I like the American version better. And this was the first time I saw the Japanese version. I've never seen this one before today, but the American version I have seen a few times, and I just liked that one better. I felt like there were more clues. The videos themselves, once you knew the full story, the video made more sense, and you knew more what happened to her looking back at all the different clips in the video and everything.
Yeah.
And it didn't really do that as much in this one.
Yeah,
it didn't really make as much sense.
Yeah, because in the Curse video, it talks about an eruption and all of these little things, but it doesn't tell you what happened to her. It just leads you to
it alludes more to the mom.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot more about the mom than it does the girl.
The doctor,
and it's
yeah.
supposed to be about the girl, Sadako. And they just they kind of fall short on that a little bit. And then in the American version, they have all these creepy things happening. They're seeing different things and all. And they don't do near as much of that in this movie where they could. And I felt like it's kind of a missed opportunity a little bit. So I didn't really care for that too much. They did dive more into the psychic aspect of it. That the kid had some abilities. The son, Yoichi, did have some abilities. And he could sense spirits and things. And he got it from his father, Ryuji.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do that in the American version. They kind of alluded that the kid was sensitive, but they didn't really make mention of where he got it or anything. It was just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate that. That was nice. But a lot of the other issues I have with it are realism, and just another thing that I have an issue with it is the poor parenting. And I have that complaint about the American version too. To be fair, I have that complaint about both.
They're both negligent.
It's just poor parenting. Yeah. They're both negligent. Like the first grader is walking himself to and from school on his own and taking care of a lot of his meals on his own. And he's basically a roommate instead of her kid. That's just horrible. I know it's a different culture and all, but that's not okay. And then he has these abilities and she knows that he's sensitive and all, but she doesn't keep the video secure enough away from him. Like, she could have easily left it at work or something. Somewhere completely where he had no chance of getting a hold of it. And she just kept it with her at the house. And then when they go to the grandparents, he had brought the tape with them and watched it on his own because Tomoko, his cousin, told him to. Wasn't his cousin, but
well, the father, in the next scene, whenever they're on the ship, they did say that Tomoko wasn't herself anymore.
Yeah, that she had basically been taken over by Sadako.
Yeah,
but if there's even a chance. Like, kids are pretty crafty. If they know of something, especially if they're not supposed to have it, it's a human impulse to do the thing you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. That kid was so freaking cute.
He was. He was very cute. But,
I love you.
First off, stranger danger. He's listening to a spirit. But not technically a stranger, I guess, if it's the spirit of his cousin. But still, he's listening to dead people and grabbing a videotape that he shouldn't have. Like, if there's even a chance that he can get anywhere near it, why would you keep it there? That's my issue.
Yeah.
With the parenting. That's a bad parent alert right there.
Yeah, but I mean, previously in the movie, he does seem very obedient and just
very responsible.
Yeah.
He's a very responsible kid, but he listened to a dead person about watching a video.
Shall we go on to the realism scale?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
God, this movie.
So, as per usual, we are putting aside the fact that this is a paranormal movie and it mentions psychic abilities and stuff like that.
Haunted VHSs.
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to be nitpicking things that, if it was actually real life, we wouldn't even have to mention it at all. But anyways, I am going to give this movie a 3. And there's a few reasons. First, the dad in the well, he keeps on looking at his watch at the time. His watch wouldn't be working anymore.
1998. That watch is dead.
And then also the fact that whenever Sadako comes out of the TV, like her fingernails are missing, but her hair's not wet. Her clothes are crisp and white. And I'm sorry, guys. We keep mentioning the American version, but in the American version, they make her wet. They make her skin like rotting, and they make her look dirty, just like you would expect a spirit coming from a whale to look like. And maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe because I know, but no, it can't even be a cultural thing, because in Ju-on, whenever Kayako is crawling down the stairs, I mean, sometimes she's clean, but a lot of the time, like towards the end of the movie, she's covered in blood. So I don't know. If anyone is more familiar with Japanese culture, and maybe it's just that we're not understanding, I would love to have that explained, because
Please tell us.
It is a little bit puzzling when I don't, because like I said, I already gave the example of Ju-on, and so obviously they're okay with some of the spirits to be, dirty and and essentially reflect how they died, but and then the parenting. But
yeah. My thing is, if you're gonna do it, do it. Don't, and pardon my language, but don't half-ass it. Like, if you're gonna have them look clean and all, then have them have the fingernails still, and just come out of the TV. Fine. Okay, fine. It's her spirit. She's intact. Fine. But if you're gonna have missing fingernails, then she just crawled out of a freaking well. She's gonna be dirty. She's gonna be sopping wet. Her skin's gonna be rotting. Her hair's gonna be wet. And she's missing the fingernails from them breaking off when climbing back up, which,
yeah. Well,
by the way.
Plus, maybe in the book it explains it, but in the Japanese movie, they never really explain what her age is. They just say her daughter. I know in the American version, they make it very obvious it's a little girl. And so for me, it's very confusing then watching Ringu and then seeing what appears to be an adult woman, or at least like a very young woman playing Sadako. So I really want to read the book, and hopefully someday we can include it in our monthly book review.
Hopefully. I mean, that might explain a little bit. I'm wondering how the American version compares to the book and how this one compares to the book.
Yeah.
Which one is closer? And it would be interesting if the American version was actually closer, because that almost never happens.
Well, from my understanding, the book does touch a lot on the psychic aspects. But I mean, I'm just going off of other people that have read it, and they've said that it really covers the evil of Sadako and
Sadako.
Thank you. Sorry. I know some people that can speak Japanese well or remotely okay are probably cringing, and I'm so sorry. But I want to try, but I can't word very well. I have a speech impediment. But yeah, they kind of go into the psychic aspect a lot more deeply. But yeah, and thinking so on all of the clues of the Japanese versus the American, a few of the clues they paste them in different areas. And I do feel like the American version does kind of feed you a little bit more clues than the Japanese. And I often enjoy when movies don't give you a whole lot of information to go off of. But whenever we've seen a version where they do kind of feed the clues to you, and I wouldn't say they treat you dumbly, but they don't really let you figure stuff out on your own. They eventually tell you, but they still did that version so well that it kind of makes me wish that the Japanese version had, I don't know. And then also in the Japanese, they give you a date, but they don't tell you how many days are left. And that,
I did like that.
Yeah, in the American version, it tells you how many days are left, and I feel like that really puts on the pressure. Because, like, oh, they have... But the characters in the Japanese were really talking about it. It's like, oh my god, I only have 4 days left. So, I don't know.
Yeah, they did reference it a lot. I believe a 3 is a fair score for realism. There are just so many things I take issue with. Apart from the negligent parenting. Just horrible parenting. So one of the things that I kept coming back to is a lot of this is going on at a cabin, a rental cabin.
Oh, I should have known you'd bring this up.
Oh, hell yes, I'm going to bring this up. They don't speak with the company at all, or at least they don't show it. So she goes up there the first time, and that's when she finds the tape and watches it. She doesn't knock, nothing. Just walks right into the cabin B4. Bingo. And nothing. There could have been someone staying there, renting it out, nope. Just walks right in and starts poking around. Okay. Sure. Trespassing is fine. Also, why is the door completely unlocked or anything? She just waltzes her happy butt right in there and starts looking around. Okay, sure, fine. Then she finds the tape, goes back there, and watches it. And that's when she starts believing, okay, maybe this isn't entirely bull. Because, all these other kids have watched the tape. They all died on the same day since they watched it at the same time together at this cabin. She watches the tape, sees Sadako in the reflection on the TV, and then the phone rings. And she just hears a noise that came from the video. So, okay, yeah, she believes now.
Yeah.
But then later on, when they're like, the well's got to be there at the cabin. Not sure how they made that jump anyway.
The phone ringing?
Okay, fine.
The mother made that conclusion because whenever she watched the tape at the cabin, the phone rang. But then whenever her husband or ex-husband watched the tape at her apartment, the phone didn't ring. But I know it's kind of a jump, but
still a jump because they kept mentioning the place itself, Izu.
Yeah. Which
is a big place, it seems like. So why that particular cabin was a bit of a stretch. A little bit. But fine. We'll set that aside for now. They make the assumption that the well is there at that particular cabin, no less. They still contact no one that they're going to be at that cabin. They go in there. They damage property. Breaking into the under part, the crawl space type area under the cabin, find the well, and then go in there and start removing whole bucketfuls of water from the well. I always wonder in movies like this, to be perfectly honest, I always wonder this. How in the hell did they explain to the authorities the situation? Yeah, officer, we found this body, this corpse, in this well under the cabin here. Oh, what cabin? It's this location, cabin B4. We're in kind of the crawl space area. Why are we down there looking for this? Oh, it's funny you ask. See, we saw this VHS, and we've been seeing some weird shit. We just kind of followed the yellow brick road to this location.
Oh my gosh.
And opened up a well that was clearly like closed off and just started pouring buckets, taking bucketfuls of water out. No, we haven't had all of our shots. We probably should do that, as well as a broad spectrum antibiotic or, 10,000. And oh, that was a lot of water, sir. We probably did water damage the entire area by pouring out nasty ass buckets of water. all over. But we found the body.
Oh.
They went home that same night, guys. There was no scene about the police asking them questions or anything. Nothing. Nothing about, the rental place contacting them and being like, you know what, we'll drop any charges of trespassing, destruction of property, or anything if you don't say anything about a body being found on our property in a well. Kind of bad for business.
Yeah.
None of that.
I will say I do like how the Japanese version did the mother finding Sadako's body better than the English, because in the English is like she lifts her up and then she kind of like disintegrates. While in this one, it's like she goes to pull up the body and the scalp freaking falls away and then the skull it's so graphic and it's disturbing.
I feel like it's a little bit inaccurate. I feel like she already would have rotted away a lot more than they kind of implied that she had. I mean, the thing wasn't sealed fully. It had a crack in the side where there was like a hole. So there's an exchange of air and moisture and all. I am surprised that there was still that much water. I feel like it would have evaporated more unless that area floods every now and then, which I guess it could. That area is very, very different than what we have here in Texas on Hell's Front Porch, and we get heat.
Yeah, because Japan, they have the monsoon season, though I don't know if that covers the entirety of Japan or just certain areas.
I'm not entirely sure, but they also do get snow, so some of it could have potentially blown in there and replenished a little bit of it. It all depends on a few different things. But it is a very different environment than here, what we're used to. Because here we get searing heat and blinding sunshine and very little rain. We pray for rain. And even when we finally get rain, it just makes the heat sticky. So, especially in the summer.
Or it's a violent freaking storm.
Yes, or it's a violent, thunderstorm. And does like a semi-flood because the ground is soaking it up, but it's not soaking it up fast enough.
Yeah.
And then we get flash floods and things. But there it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So
they have a different kind of flooding.
A little bit. But with that exchange and with that moisture and everything, I feel like she would have rotted away a little bit sooner. Because it's been years, they said.
Yeah.
Like she would have been in her 40s. So that's what?
Yeah.
At least 20 years. Just judging by her height.
Yeah.
At least 20 years. So she's skeleton. She a nasty skeleton, but she is skeleton.
Yeah.
At this point, she bones.
Yeah.
And the ligaments and things also that keep the skeleton together, they're not there anymore.
But to be fair, movie's got a movie, and seeing hair come off of a skull is way more impactful than being like, oh, it's a skeleton.
It is, but we're on the realism scale. I know movie's got a movie. That's part of the entertainment. But as far as realism, bullshit.
Okay, well...
so much bullshit.
Anything else you want to do on the realism? Because there's something else that I think we should cover.
Those are the main points. There were some mess-ups here and there that I love to see in movies, just to catch them and go, I got you. And a lot of that was like the sleeve when he was down in the well, which I have no idea why he was the main one to be in the well.
No. Her picking up buckets for hours, he should have done that.
Yes. So my husband and I have fish tanks. We've got a 10-gallon and a 15-gallon. And we get 5-gallon containers and we refill them with reverse osmosis RO water. That way it has less of the bad stuff, and tap water's not good for fish. So, not really. So, we get those kinds of containers. Those 5-gallon containers are a little over 40 pounds. if we assume that the buckets that they're using are about 3-ish gallons, that's a little generous. It looks about 2 gallons, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, about 3 gallons. That's still at least 20 pounds. Probably closer to 25 or so. She's pulling bucket after bucket after bucket.
Yeah.
Up the well,
Yeah.
and then lifting them up out of the well and pouring them out.
Yeah. That's a lot.
For hours. Hours.
My arms would have fallen off or dislocated,
Yes.
one of the
Oh,
two.
you're a noodle, sweetie.
I know.
You're a noodle. You would have
I
fallen
can't even
over at
lift
like
30
the 10-minute
pounds.
mark.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for her to do that after hours, and then he seems upset with her for not continuing to lift the bucket. I'm sorry, sir. You're standing in the well, and you're just pushing the bucket under to fill it.
Well, he was mainly upset whenever she dropped the bucket, and he's like, "You could have killed me."
Which, fine, but at the same time, like, don't get upset with her for stopping and all. Like, she's exhausted.
Well, if she is that tired, I think she probably should have been like, "I can't do it," or something along those lines instead of just dropping the bucket, because it could have hurt him. But
oh, she fell over.
yeah. But anyways, either way, he should have started off with the bucket. That's what we're trying to convey.
Zero chivalry there.
Yeah.
And also not very smart. I feel like he also probably could have done it a little bit faster. Or at least, like, switch off.
Yeah, my only reasoning to why he more than likely went down first is the fact that he is super sensitive, and maybe he's trying to gauge if he could sense her coming near him or something. But
then once you take a reading, get your butt back up there.
yeah.
Tag out.
But to be fair, he never did, so
Yeah.
he got
He
exhausted
sensed
before he
nothing.
could.
Tag out.
Yeah.
And then his sleeve they couldn't decide if it was wet or not. So one scene, it'd be like halfway underwater and it's sopping wet. And then the next scene, it's completely dry. Then the next scene after, it's sopping wet again. Like, make up your mind. It's wet. We know it's wet. That watch is broken. Quit looking at it. Don't lie to us. And then he's up top after getting out of the well and them switching. And he's like, "It's 7:10. We've made it." Bullshit. Your watch is broken. You can't read anything.
Oh my gosh. But so what I want to allude to is if we were in that world and we had a cursed videotape, well, okay, first we should do, if we were in the mother situation, whether or not we would be so dumb as to watch it. And yeah, I think that's a no. Okay, so we're nixing that part. So what if we stumbled upon it and accidentally watched it, and we're watching the tape on
We watch a videotape.
We watched the tape, what are we doing to survive?
Accidentally watch a videotape.
Well, the kids, the kids are just trying to either record something or just watching random tapes to fill up their time, and they stumbled upon that videotape.
Saying that they had heard the story and they watched it.
Okay, so I'm going off of the American version where they're trying to record. I think they're trying to, or am I going off of Scary Movie 3?
I think you're going off Scary Movie 3.
Oopsie.
Pick one.
Oh, I love Scary Movie 3. Oh, that was so funny.
So if we had, barring all of the evidence to the contrary, we had watched the tape.
Yeah, I'd do one of two things. I would either do exactly what the reporter was doing and try and investigate and see what I can do to survive, or I would just enjoy my last week as much as I can and then just accept my fate. I I don't know. It kind of depends on like when it would have happened, like what my mindset is. I don't know. I'm sure I would be going through a ton of emotions that entire week between like breaking down, being depressed, being scared, and just not wanting to die, but then like accepting that I might die, and yeah.
Scared and confused and all. At some point, I might either show it to someone else or make a copy and show it to them. But I would definitely try to figure out what the heck is behind it. Like, why those images are there and all. What's the meaning behind it. See if I could find her, if possible. And then if I had made a copy and given it to someone else to maybe get their opinion, take the original and smudge it with sage. Pour some salt over it, some kerosene, and burn it. Because, no. That is a nope tape. But still try to find them because, I mean, if there's even the remote chance that she's still there after something that horrible happened, like, no one deserves to be left like that. Like, you should definitely at least try to find them and lay them to rest.
Yeah. I don't think I would show the tape to anyone. I'd probably be like, well, if this is real, I would want to destroy the tape or do whatever I can to prevent someone else from watching it.
I mean, and it's hard to say what we would do without any evidence of knowing anything before because there's so many like ghost stories and chain letters and things like that that say make a copy and pass it on.
Yeah.
Or this will happen. So that was my reasoning there is, you know, because of that, on the off chance that it is a thing, make a copy and show it to them and get their opinion on it. If it is BS, then no harm, no foul.
Yeah. But I will say the fact that they tried to make watching a VHS tape scary, like that's a pretty cool feat. I mean, in America, we just have stupid, like, haunted houses and haunted dolls. It's like, we don't really get super creative, but I forgot, I don't know if it's that particular writer or, man, I should have looked this up beforehand, but I know there's some horror writers in Japan that do try and make everyday objects scary. And that's why sometimes you get those movies are kind of hit or miss. That are Japanese, because it'll be like, oh, try and make a book scary or like something like that.
Well, and there's like one missed call.
Yeah, that's continuing that on. I wonder if that was done by the same person or how that came to be. But yeah, or maybe it's just, I could be wrong. Maybe it's just the Japanese culture as a whole. But it is pretty interesting to make everyday objects scary, because if it does affect you, the next time you touch that object, it kind of makes you think of the moment or the movie and kind of makes you hesitate for a second. And to be fair, VHS tapes are kind of creepy, especially when they don't have a label or anything and they're just black. I don't know. It can be ominous if you don't know what's on the tape.
I think you watched this at too young of an age. It kind of colored your view.
No, but...
What tape did you find?
I don't... Nothing.
I don't know. I never had an issue with VHS. The only issue I had is when, like, there was a kind of a bend in it that would kind of mess up how it played.
See, for me... Like, it's not like I would look at a VHS tape and be like, oh, that's creepy. More, I'm alluding, or what I'm trying to get at is my parents would often, store home movies on VHS tapes, and they'd have them in a storage box in the attic. And so whenever you go into a creepy, dark attic, and then you have a box full of VHS tapes, that's just kind of creepy in general.
That's why I was asking, what kind of tape did you find, sweetie?
Home movies, but it was nothing like crazy. It was just home movies that weren't labeled. I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is I can totally get where they're coming in from, especially since they have to make a copy of the tape and then pass it along. Because at that point in time, it's almost like a virus to where it's like everyone is eventually going to get it and or get to see it, and it's just a matter of time. Maybe some people, I wonder what would happen if you watched it twice. Like if you had a friend that watched it and then made a copy, but then you had already watched it, if it would then be safe for you to pass along the curse, or if you'd immediately die after you watched it a second time. I don't know. I kind of want to know. I want to say in the second movie.
Fair question. Does the timer restart, or does it continue from where you were before?
That'd be terrifying, because if you had 1 day left,
or an hour left.
It
just slowly dwindles down. Like if you and a friend were passing it back and forth so you wouldn't involve anyone else. If your time is just slowly dwindling down.
That's terrifying.
Or does it reset, or does it not work at all? Does it not get past you because you've already passed it on?
All of that stuff, I feel like they did the most sense for a curse.
I mean, that would make the most sense if you couldn't get it again, because in this movie especially, she watches it a few times.
Yeah.
After she made the copy and had someone else watch it.
Yeah.
So
it's not the number of times that you watch the tape. It's strictly the 1 week. Oh, and another thing that they didn't mention that they did in the American, or at least maybe I missed it, but in the American, they're like, oh, how long can you live in a well? And they're like, oh, 1 week. That's why you die after 7 days after watching the tape. But in the Japanese, I don't remember them mentioning that at all.
They did.
Like,
they also
pretty much.
1 week is
they don't really have an.
It might be a bit of a stretch. It really depends on a few different factors.
We're not going to break down whether or not you can survive in a week, because that's more the American ring, and so we should wait to do that until we cover the.
Fair. Fair. They didn't mention how long she was down there, just that she was alive down there. That she did try to climb up and she lost her fingernails.
Yeah, that
trying to climb up with that.
Yeah. At least they didn't, like, in the American version, you actually see her, like, press down her hand and then the nail, like, pop the nail out. At least they didn't show that in the Japanese.
Yeah.
But they were pretty
they just
graphic
see it
still.
You see it sticking out, which it looked a little cleaner than it should have.
It still was a little bloody.
Okay. Yeah, which makes no sense. It would have been at least 20 years later. The blood would not still be red. Yeah,
it would have been, like, brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it probably would have deteriorated as well, so.
Yeah. But, so, I would say.
To see this different side of it, but.
Yeah.
I like the American version better.
Yeah, so, I would say.
Don't hate us.
I know there's a lot of people. Well, I feel like The Ring is one of the few American versions that a lot of people have a consensus on. Yeah, that was a really good remake. But I will say, if you haven't seen Ringu, I think it's worth a watch. And especially, it's very interesting because the American and the Japanese, like, they're almost scene by scene similar, except for when the Japanese hits the halfway point. And then once it hits the halfway point, the American just does its own thing, which I think kind of makes it a little bit better. But it's also when the last half of the movie is when the Japanese version gets a lot more into, like, the psychic aspect and stuff. But I still think the Japanese version is very much worth watching. I'm really excited and anxious to read the original novel and to compare it to both the other movies. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's like finding it.
No, it's on Amazon. You can just buy it off of Amazon.
Okay.
I just haven't bought it yet. It's on my wish list.
I just hope it's a good translation.
Very creepy.
I mean, it's a translation that all of the other, like, book reviewers and people that I watch have read, and they never made any comments that it was bad, so.
I wonder how much is going to be lost in translation, though, because it doesn't. So Japanese doesn't translate directly to English.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuances and things that just don't transfer over. So you kind of have to play with it. It's more of an art translating it than a science.
Yeah.
So there probably is some things missing, and they might have changed some things to make a bit more sense to us.
Yeah, true.
But I wonder how close it is, at least.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think whenever you're reading a translated novel, as long as you get the main themes and the idea, that's definitely the most important. And, yeah, it would be best if you can actually read Japanese and understand thoroughly the culture. So a few of the lines or influxes or whatever, you can kind of understand what they mean or what they're trying to portray. But, I mean, even if you're, like, reading an English novel that was always English, just two people reading the book are going to get something different. And that's actually why I really enjoy reading, is because every person can grab something different from a book.
Well, and you can actually get different things, too, rereading it.
Yeah.
I know there's some stories and things that I've read a few times, and each time I read it, I notice something different, or I interpret it differently.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm not going to knock the book just because it's a translation, because as long as I understand the idea that's trying to come across, and it's detailed enough that, you know, we can compare it to the movies, then I'm satisfied with that. Well, and we will be announcing the next book that we'll be reading pretty soon, so keep an eye on that. And
well, we'll have already announced it by the time
this
comes out.
Yeah, we record so early, it's hard to keep up with that, but
we're a couple of weeks or so ahead of
schedule. Yep. But if you guys, well, first of all, we would encourage you to watch both versions of the movie, and if you have, let us know what your thoughts are, which version you liked better. I know there are a handful of people that prefer the Japanese better. And I would love to know your opinion and why that is. Where does the American version fall for you versus the Japanese?
What are we missing?
Yeah.
Because we could have missed something.
Yeah. Or if there's something that we missed because we don't completely understand the culture, and you are more experienced in it than we are, then let us know if we missed anything. And ending Asian Horror Month, the reason why I love watching foreign films, not just Asian horror or Asian horror films, but foreign.
What else you got in that
but foreign films in general, even like European foreign films, it really helps you learn about their culture. And even if there's a few things that you don't really understand, it prompts you to want to look it up and better understand. And I think if we all understood each other's culture in a deeper meaning, then that as a whole will make us a better global society and be able to, I was going to say get along with each other, but even to understand each other at a basic human level. I think it's so awesome that we have the opportunity to be able to translate different languages and to be able to learn about how other people live. It's really fascinating because, you know, in some cases it is a very different world. And, you know, Japan and Korea has obviously had a lot of American influence and Western influence, but they really, in a lot of ways, have made it their own as well, with how they've kept some key aspects of their culture. So, I don't know, I think it's really cool.
We definitely want to hear your thoughts, guys, and if you have any suggestions about what movies you want us to watch or review, let us know. Send us a message, leave a comment, subscribe for more videos and podcasts and things so you know when they come out. And until then, stay safe and stay spoopy, guys.
Bye.
Bye.